2010s is a decade that I can remember the most so far in my life. Since the early 2000s, where I was very young at the time. I was born in 97, so I don't remember a lot of the 2000s actually. But the 2010s, really I can remember and had is the first time I can really like pin down to like, I guess like eras, I guess you could call them, of that decade of my life. Went through a lot of changes and just went through a lot of different experiences in those years. And I wanted to make this video just because been thinking about it recently and trying to narrow down what would be the best 10 albums that were released through the 2010s. This 2010s was also a very big time for me for music discovery, and music's always been a huge part of my life. And so I've just been thinking recently, and I finally narrowed it down to 10 albums that stick out as what I would think are the best 10 albums of the 2010s. And these are my personal favorites and my opinion. Obviously, opinions are going to differ vastly throughout different people and what their musical tastes are, but these are the ones that stand out to me the most. And I'm not going to do a countdown with them. I'm just going to go through them. I put them in alphabetical order, and I just didn't want to really narrow them down to just 10 through 1. So I can go ahead and start here with a black metal or post-black metal band that I came across years ago called Ultra Plagues, and their album called Teeth, Glory, and Injury. I chose this album because it's really just a very interesting take on black metal and just metal in general. And it's really just shown how metal has evolved throughout the years. And me having been into the classics of black metal and death metal and just extreme metal in general, this album really sticks out to me as a big, interesting change with experimentation. This album came out in 2013, and it still just really sticks out to me as just a very interesting album. I haven't really heard one exactly like it. And this was their final album, and haven't made any music ever since, and haven't really heard anything about them ever since. So the next album I want to talk about is by a band called Artificial Brain, with their 2014 album and their debut album Labyrinth Constellation. This is a band I didn't find out until the past few years, until the last few years. They're a really sick blackened technical death metal band. And they just have themes of just like science fiction throughout their lyrics, and just like really cool, and just I really love the vocals, and just like the music just goes just really heavy, just plucks it in my head just right, as I'm pretty picky about when it comes to death metal music, and really just metal music in general. I'm very picky about it. But it is one of metal. A lot of my musical tastes revolve around metal music. And they always have since I was a kid. But this album just really, it just really just hits harder than all the other ones. They've only released 3 full lengths at this point. The last coming out in 2022. So they've had a big stretch and a lot of lineup changes throughout the years. But there's just something about this album that it just hits so hard, and I just love it, and I love turning it on, and it's just really sick. So if you're really into death metal and technical death metal, definitely check this album out if you haven't heard of it before. And a little bit of a change of pace with this next album. This honestly might be probably, if I were to have to pick my favorite album of the 2010s, this would be it, and that is Charli XCX with her album Charli. This came out in 2019, and the reason I picked this album, it just really brings together just all the great pop trends from the 2010s into one album, and it's just done so well. And just she puts that bit of experimentation in with it, just the perfect amount, and it just makes it incredible. Like 10 out of 10, perfect pop album. You can get much better than this, honestly, and it just brings me back, like, even though it came out in 2019, but just the sounds that are implemented throughout it are like nostalgic to me at this point. Just just hearing just various pop music throughout the 2010s out in the world, like at theme parks and such, it just brings me back to those times. And Charlie just really nailed it, and just lots of great features on the album. And I just really commend her for her experimentation and just really just nailing it on the head with this album. The next album I want to talk about is getting back more into the metal sphere, and that is Death Heaven with their album Sunbather. This has gotten a lot of backlash, it's gotten a lot of praise. It's really interesting that, I mean, just like the core black metal, like cold black metal people that love the old school Norwegian stuff, just other old school stuff from Scandinavia and such, just absolutely despise this album and hate it. It's just hipster black metal, as they call it. And I mean, I understand that to an extent, because I mean, I love the old school black metal as well, but I am very picky about it as well. But I actually found this album after the fact, after I gotten into other black metal music, but I still just really like this album, and it's just really combines shoegaze with atmospheric black metal so well, and they're just bringing in that, just like really popularizing that genre that is known as black gaze. And it's just crazy how well those sounds work together, and they just really nailed it on the head with this album. Just made it perfect, in my opinion. Just really summed up the genre very well. And this actually, it was another thing that was interesting. I said that there's the people that hate this album, but there's the people that are just don't even listen to metal music that said they like this album a lot, which is very interesting to me. But just the sound that it creates, the atmosphere that it creates, and just the vocals are just perfect. It's like the exact type of vocals that I love within metal music. And yeah, just this album is just really great. The next album that I'm going to talk about, if people have been called me out for being Fantanocore already at this point, they definitely will with this album. That's Death Grips, The Money Store. I had to put this album on here. This is an album that really, it was a slow burn for me. It really took me a while to get into it. And I think that's a thing that happened to a lot of people. When it clicked hard. And it's honestly probably one of the most unique albums I've ever heard in my entire life. Just the unique vocal style, just like these like aggressive kind of punk style vocals going in with this just like industrial and like hip hop music, and like I've heard people say just like yeah, it's really abrasive and crazy on the surface, but when you really listen to it, they do have some catchiness to them, and just have that kind of like formula, like that kind of a pop formula to them, which is really interesting. But just really incredible, groundbreaking album, and just really changed the game, and just like brought in that kind of like weirdo experimentation within hip-hop music. I mean, obviously people have been combining industrial and experimenting with hip-hop music for quite a while now, but they just really just kind of brought it more to the mainstream, and to an extent, I mean, it's not really, I still wouldn't call it a mainstream album, but I'd say most people know about this album at this point. The next artist I want to talk about is sometimes compared to Death Grips, even though he absolutely hates being compared to Death Grips, and he really isn't anything that much like Death Grips. I mean, they're kind of in the same sphere to an extent, but they have very drastically different sounds. And that one I want to talk about is JPEG Mafia's All My Heroes Are Cornballs. People would think that you put Veteran here. People think Veterans is best from that decade, but this was just my personal favorite, and this is the album that really got me into him. I just love so many aspects about it. It really made me fall in love with him and his music. And I love just the mix of just, it's so weird. There's just a lot of like weirdo just sounds mixed in with his music, and he just like had these really like out there and interesting, unorthodox like structures to his songs. And I can't think of a better opener than Jesus Forgive Me, I Am a Thought. Like, it's just incredible, and it just like, it really wraps up the whole album, just like the whole feel of the album in a way. And I really like how cohesive this album really is too. and it has a lot of like ambient textures through it, which is really interesting to me. Just like I love that, and just like the sounds are just really incredible, and I really love how it really shows JPEG Mafia, and this is just like a kind of a bit of an era of his to an extent, but it just shows him and he has like this very aggressive side. It's very aggressive, like in your face. But then he goes into like these softer, like singing, like kind of feminine side of things, and like pop music, the pop influences he's had. And I just absolutely love that, and I just like really made me fall in love with that, and like it's just like something I see in myself to an extent. Like I love the harsh, abrasive, like punk and metal stuff, but I also love some just like straight up like bubblegum pop music, and I just love that contrast, and it just like made me like kind of find that in myself, and like helped me figure that out for myself, that like I love that, and just like him, just like how he embraced it throughout that album, and just I just love that about him, and I love that about that album so much. He really just did it so well on that album out of all his other albums so far. The next artist I want to talk about just had to be mentioned. He's just like, honestly, would have to say the best rapper that came out of the 2010s, and that is Kendrick Lamar. You can't make a 2010s list without mentioning Kendrick Lamar. I did pick an album though that most people would probably not expect. Most people would think you put Good Kid, Mad City, or To Pimp a Butterfly. And while those are both incredible albums, Good Kid, Mad City I really got into back in 2012, and listened to that a lot through high school. And then To Pimp a Butterfly, I didn't really get it at first when I first listened to it, but I've gone back to it in recent years and just realized it for what the masterpiece that it is. But the album I picked for my list is the album Damn, that came out in 2017. And the reason I chose this album over the others is that I just really just love the sounds that are on it, and just it just feels like a good like aftershock to Pimp a Butterfly, and it just has a lot of just hip hop sounds and hip hop kind of like trends that were going through the 2010s. I think it really wraps up a lot of the sounds that were in hip hop music, and I was really into hip hop music at the very beginning of the 2010s, like 2010 through 2014. I was like really into hip hop music and mostly exclusively listening to hip hop music, and just this album just brings kind of like those sounds, and it's just like kind of nostalgic to me, and that's why it just like hits with me so well. And of course it has just like the very socially conscious lyrics, and just it's just Kendrick. Like Kendrick's just incredible about putting words together and just creating pictures, and it's just a really incredible hip hop album, and one of the best of the 2010s easily. The next album I have is by an artist called Lebanon Handover, and it's their album called Tomb for Two. And the reason I chose this album is that I wanted to shed some light on the kind of goth revival that kind of happened throughout the 2010s. There's a lot of bands that were really just coming in with this like kind of goth. I mean, there's like the post-punk revival. I think that feels like this kind of like different, like and yeah, it's in the same sphere, but like the post-punk revival kind of like that kind of mixed in with like a lot of indie rock music and indie pop music throughout the 2010s. But I liked the more like just like darker side of that and the more underground side of that. And this band, with this album especially, really just nailed it on the head. They just like brought so many of the great sounds that were created back in the 80s, in that just within dark wave, cold wave, all those different like mini subgenres, micro genres within goth, the whole sphere of goth music. And I just feel like they just did it perfectly on this album. The vocals from both of the vocalists, just really incredible, and just the sounds that they created, just like this kind of like lo-fi minimalism. It's just like exactly what I love within that type of genre of music, and I really just think they just brought it together so well on this album. There's a little bit of a change of pace of here again, back into the more extreme stuff, I'd say. I've got the album by the artist Nails called Unsilent Death. This album was released in 2011, I believe, and it's only like some people don't even really can like consider it a full length album just because it's only like 11 minutes long, and but man, those 11 minutes are insane and crazy and just pummeling insanity. Like it's just like it's just so aggressive and just heavy and fast and just angry, and I love it so much. Like if you want to like a quick workout or something, like a bang out 11 minutes workout, listen to this album and you will get the best workout of your life. I promise it. But man, just how intense and just brutal and just like unforgiving this album is. It's just like incredible. It's like standing up to people and just big fuck you to just society in general, and it's just fucking sick. And it's my favorite of their albums they've released so far, and I don't think they'll ever be able to beat this album. It's just really just so raw and aggressive and brutal, and I absolutely fucking love it. So the last album I have here is by the artist Playboi Carti. His album they released in 2018 called Diit. I couldn't go through this without mentioning a trap album. Trap is not one of my favorite things that I listen to a lot, but I'm very, very picky about it. I don't like how it's a huge mainstream genre of music, and but it's just like everybody's just doing the same thing over and over again, and it's just like kind of uninteresting to me and boring and just kind of cringy to an extent. Just everybody doing what Future's doing and copying Future and just getting on the same bandwagon and creating the same sounds. But if I had to pick a trap album from the 2010s, it would have to be this one. And another thing about Playboi Carti is that he was mixed in with the ASAP mob as well, which I was a big fan of in the early 2010s. And he definitely implements kind of those sounds that ASAP has to themselves too, like that more psychedelic side of their music. And so just the psychedelic sounds, the soundscapes that he creates on this album are just goes so hard and just like sounds so sick to me, and just like every song just hits. Yes, the lyrical content is just like nothing special at all and not really interesting and just like pretty cliche, but it's about the atmosphere of the album and just like the atmosphere it creates, and it creates a really, really cool, just like spacey, leaned out like sounds throughout the album, and it just like can get you hype as fuck, and it's just like really hits. And I just really like Playboi Carti's music. He takes a lot of influence actually from metal and stuff as well. He likes that mostly within his like stage persona and such. And I really admire about hip hop artists in this day and age, getting influence from punk and metal and stuff, just because it's not like really a mainstream thing, even though Playboi Carti is a very mainstream artist. But yeah, that's the last album I really wanted to talk about here on this album list here. But let me know what you guys would want to would put on your list for the top 10 albums of the 2010s. I always like to hear other people's lists, and maybe I'll find some music that I haven't known about, and let me know your thoughts on my list as well. But that's all I really have to say in this video. I'm going to end out my videos like I always do. Please support my friends here on the side if you can. I have the links down in the description. And thank you for watching, and see you guys next time.